Hello again, card gamers. Today, I'm going to show you some cards that you can substitute for some legendaries if you happen to not have those legendaries. Okay? Now, first, are you going to be able to guess the first card I'm going to show you? I'm going to give you one more second. Yeah. It's going to be Reinforcement Walker. For like anything, if you're playing a green color and there is a legendary that you are missing in your deck and you don't already have 3 of this card in there, do it. This is personal opinion. I can't be held accountable for any deck building choices you make, but no, seriously, I love this card. If you're not playing 3 of it already and you're like, I only have 2 Vaders. What do I put what do I put a third Vader in for? Reinforcement Walker. Okay, that's my choice. Secondarily, what else do we got here? I've got a new additional favorite card. Reinforcement Walker is probably still really the ultimate favorite, but there's this new card, and I really have to thank Woo for this. Okay, this card idea, I got it from this person's channel, Woo. I just typed in W with lots of O's and then SWU, but it's 5 O's, just so you know. Recently, for fun, I watched their How to Win video here, and there was a Boba Green list, I believe, they had in there where they mentioned the card Recruit. Okay. It's a 1-cost green event. It says, search the top 5 cards of your deck for a unit, reveal it, and draw it. Now, one of the things that they mentioned in there is that they were using it as a bonus way to try to find Super Laser Technician. Now, this is mostly, I mean, you really are only using this in a villainy deck, unfortunately, but I really enjoyed that thought process because you're playing 3 resupply, you're playing 3 super laser tech because you really want that ramp on turn 2. Getting the ramp on turn 2 is so critical, especially in a Boba Green list, because then literally on turn 3 you're deploying your leader, and it's one of the most overstated leaders for their cost. Very impactful leader. That's crazy. Being able to increase your chances by yet another 3 cards in your deck, I found that really compelling, and I actually did play Boba Green this past Wednesday at my locals. It was another 4 rounds of best of 1, and yeah, I beat everybody. It was crazy, and this card was actually so good, especially I feel like especially in Boba Green, because of your ability to get a resource refunded pretty easily. I actually even used this. There was a turn where I was playing against Boba Yellow, and I had not really a great play at 7 resources. And my opponent's board was starting to get a little bit scary, and I did have my Boba Fett leader out. It was not going to die. It was fully healed, and I was able to play Recruit. I was able to find a Darth Vader in my top 5 cards. And then after that, I had my Boba Fett attack and kill. I think it defeated their Bodhi Rook, possibly. And then that refunded my resource, so I was back to 7. And then I was able to play Vader, and Vader came out, was able to kill something. And I'm pretty sure I'll show you the list. I'll show you the list later. Okay, but anyways, we can't get too distracted because we've got to get to more cards that you can use to substitute for legendary. So the reason I mentioned Recruit is because if the legendary card you're needing to replace is a card that you do have some number of copies of it, but maybe you don't have 3, maybe you don't have 2, you don't have all the copies of it that you would like. If you're playing green, it's possible that you could just throw Recruit in there, and maybe you'll be able to find the legendary that you do have. I found it surprisingly effective, so maybe that's an option for you. All right. The next card on this list is Home 1. This card, it's a really good card. Very impactful card. When played, you get a heroism card from your discard pile, and it costs 3 less. So if it costs 3 or less, you play it for free. This has Restore 2. Very good card. You already know. I don't need to explain this. Travis, speed it up. What are we replacing Home 1 with? No shocker here. We are replacing it with Reinforcement Walker. Once again, if you are trying to play some number of Home 1s and you are not maxed out on Reinforcement Walkers already, Reinforcement Walker heals you. It draws you cards. It's very big. Obviously, it doesn't give you Restore on all of your heroism. Restore on all of your units, right? Yeah, it doesn't give you Restore on all of your units, but it does give you an immediate heal, whereas Home 1 doesn't. And it's an uncommon, so very valuable in my opinion. That would probably be about the only true replacement for Home 1. Next is the Boba Fett Disintegrator. This is actually another really easy card to replace. While this card is legendary and it is technically slightly overstated, it does have 5 health. If this card only had 4 health, it would be much worse. But it's got 5 health, has a pretty solid on-attack ability. Even though it doesn't come up too often, but there are times where it's awkward for your opponent to just attack your base, because then your Boba Fett can just attack in and destroy their unit for free and not take any damage. It's a great card, don't get me wrong, but you can literally replace this with any other 3-drop. If the curve of your deck needs a 3-drop, it wishes it could have Boba Fett Disintegrator, you can really just put in whatever other 3-drop you don't have 3 of that's solid. If you don't have Cell Block Guards, you can just put Cell Block Guards in there. It's going to be okay. Honestly, for the most part, your deck is going to operate and function the same as it would if this card was in there. So pretty easy. Wow, what an insightful list of replacement cards, Travis. This video is so insane. All right, the next card is Millennium Falcon. Yeah, it's a legendary. It comes into play ready, can straight up attack your opponent's base. Very good. There's actually a really solid replacement for this, and it's the Ozatuk Liberator Gunship. This card is also conveniently a 3/4. It is also Cunning Heroism. Wow, it's fitting all the things. It does unfortunately cost 1 more, so that is sad, but it does have Ambush, which gives it that immediate impact similar to the Millennium Falcon, although you don't get to hit your opponent's base. There are actually situations where Ozatuk Liberator Gunship is slightly better than the Millennium Falcon, because if the Millennium Falcon, if you were needing to play the Millennium Falcon to destroy one of your opponent's units before it can hit your base, well, it's not really doing that yet, because you're just playing it and then it's readied. And then you don't get to attack it. Your opponent gets to make an action. Whereas the Ozatuk Liberator is going to be able to, right when you play it, go in and defeat your opponent's unit. So it's a very strong consideration. I'd definitely recommend it. Okay. What's the next one? Oh no, it's Luke Skywalker. Okay. This one is actually extremely hard to replace. I don't legitimately think there's great replacements for Luke Skywalker. In any deck that you're looking to play Luke Skywalker, you really do just actually want to play Luke Skywalker, and nothing else is really going to be as impactful as him. When played, gets to -3, -3 something, or -6, -6. It's super strong. The stats are great, and Luke has Restore 3, which, if you haven't seen my other video that I just made about how impactful even just Restore 1 is, Restore 3 is crazy. Okay, so what are we going to replace this card with? Well, it's not great, but you could replace it with Cargo Juggernaut. You're probably playing blue units, so maybe you get to heal 4. And maybe if you're playing Energy Conversion Lab, you get to ambush the Cargo Juggernaut out and defeat something. And it has a shield. It's very okay. It's not ideal, but like I said, Especially with how expensive Luke has gotten recently, it's very sad. You might just have to play Cargo Juggernaut, but there's another option. It's Reinforcement Walker. It's Reinforcement Walker. It'll heal you 3 right when you play it. It won't defeat something, but it'll heal you 3. If you need Luke's and you're playing green, put the Reinforcement Walker in. It'll be pretty good. Now, there is actually a couple more options, okay? You could play Vanquish. If you're not maxed out on Vanquishes, you could play Vanquish because that's part of Luke's effect, is defeating a unit, basically. Vanquish does that. Costs 2 less. Doesn't give you a body on board, but it's a solid choice. And if the healing is also important, you could use Redemption. Redemption, when played, you can heal up to a total of 8 damage from any number of units or bases. And you deal that damage to the Redemption, which is unfortunate. But it's a Sentinel as well, so it does have the ability to keep you alive. So if you're thinking that you're playing Luke for healing, you could maybe just replace it with some Redemptions and maybe some Vanquish. Literally, maybe 1 Vanquish, 1 Cargo Juggernaut, and 1 Redemption. And those are your 3 Lukes that you don't have. It's not great, but that's what we've got. Darth Vader. Now, this card is the most expensive unit in the game currently, and it is great. Don't get me wrong. This card is it's a good card. It's basically Ewing Reinforcement, but a legendary for villainy, and it comes with a 5/7 that ambushes instead of you being able to choose lots of other units. It's a great card. It's decently replaceable, though, actually. Okay, so this is going to be a surprise. Once again, I'm not going to show the Reinforcement Walker again, but you can replace this with Reinforcement Walker if you want. Reinforcement Walker is great. But there's some cards that are actually pretty close to this, okay? So, Mercenary Company. This is just a common. This is already almost Darth Vader, okay? It comes with the Overwhelm effect too, which could be relevant, but it has Ambush, it has 5 power, it's in green, it actually costs 1 less than Darth Vader. It doesn't have 7 HP, but hear me out. I would say most of the time when my Darth Vader is ambushing in, it's defeating something that has 4 power. 4 power or less, honestly. And the difference between my Darth Vader having 1 HP left or 3 HP left is it's not really mattering that often. Sure, it'll matter if my opponent's planning on playing an Overwhelming Barrage next or something, then they can deal more damage somewhere else. But when my Vader after the ambush is at 3 HP or 1 HP, it's not really... My opponent's attacking in with a 3 power unit most of the time anyways. So it's not a gigantic difference. And this card costs 1 less. So I think might be slightly underrated. And it has built-in ambush. It's not like Battlefield Marine that needs you to combo with your energy conversion lab to ambush in. Nah, this has Overwhelm as well too. It's not bad. And it costs 1 less, like I said. Pretty solid. Next is Traitorous. Now this isn't doing the same effect as Darth Vader, obviously, right? And most of the time when you're playing a deck with Darth Vader in it, you're probably wanting to play some number of Traitorous. But maybe if you don't have all of your Vaders, maybe you just go literally all the way up to 3 Traitorous, because this card is great. Whatever you were going to ambush with Darth Vader, a decent amount of the time, you would have been able to also just take it with Traitorous. And that swing is actually more powerful than Vader in a lot of cases. Pretty crazy, especially if your opponent has already put upgrades on that unit or experience tokens. It's very strong. Very strong. Definitely recommend. Another option is Agent Kallus. Not as good, honestly, as the Mercenary Company, in my opinion, but it does cost 1 less, because a lot of the times you are wanting to ambush something with 4 power, and so Kallus is just also going to get defeated from that ambush as well, but it is also even 1 cheaper than the Mercenary Company. So you could consider Agent Callus. Maybe if you have Imperial synergies in your deck, you choose Callus over the Mercenary Company. It's a solid choice instead of Vader if you don't have all of your Darth Vaders yet, or any of them. You can mix and match. Do some Callus, do some Mercenary Company. I swear Mercenary Company is a decent card, okay? All right. The next one, it's going to be a difficult one as well to replace. This is the Avenger Hunting Star Destroyer ship. It's a really good card. Fortunately, this card is mostly really only good against control decks. It's good against mid-range decks as well, but a lot of the times you can replace this with Reinforcement Walker. I'm not joking. Reinforcement Walker is that good, in my opinion. This card is also getting more expensive. You could also just play more copies of Vanquish if you're not maxed out on Vanquish. Vanquish is actually going to save you a lot more than the Avenger will, honestly, because a lot of the times you're needing to defeat something specific, and Avenger is letting your opponent choose, and Vanquish is going to straight up defeat the Fett's Fire Spray that's threatening lethal on you, or the Vanquish is going to be able to defeat your opponent's Reinforcement Walker, you know? So if you're not maxed out on Vanquish, you up your Vanquishes. Another one, it's really not that great, but you could put AT-AT Suppressor in there. This card, it is much worse, but if the purpose of your Avenger is to potentially stop your opponent from defeating you this turn, and you're going to defeat them next turn with your gigantic ship's attack, AT-AT Suppressor can do that sometimes. It only exhausts the ground units when it's played. So unfortunately, if your opponent has Fett's Fire Spray, you know, you're going to be needing to use Vanquish on that instead. AT-AT Suppressor is not going to save you there. But if they've got a ground presence that's going to lethal you, you can just play AT-AT Suppressor, exhaust all of that, hope that your opponent is going to take one more action so that you can take the initiative, and then you might be able to, if you're in the range, you might be able to just have the AT-AT Suppressor hit your opponent's base for 8 next turn on your first action to secure the victory. It's possible that's the situation, but outside of that, this card, it's not going to be that great. You're probably going to just have to replace Avenger with Vanquish. And in a similar vein, the last card that we're going to show here today is Super Laser Blast. In my other video, I showed a blue Palpatine deck that I played where I actually played 0 Super Laser Blast. And I actually did have 2 Super Laser Blast at the time. I could have played them, but I opted for more of a lower to the ground units with some Sentinels with Darth Vader and Reinforcement Walker top end. So I felt like I was going to be able to keep the ground arena most of the time and then just save my spot removal events for any space units. And so I just didn't play Super Laser Blast in that deck. So you could just do that. Just play all of the other removal instead of Super Laser Blast if you don't have any Super Laser Blasts. So that's definitely a viable option. With that, that's the conclusion of this video. If any of these were helpful to you, if maybe you got some new ideas from this, leave a like maybe if you want. No big deal if you don't. I appreciate you just being here watching this video this far. You're crazy. That's it. I'll see you in the next one.